All right, perfect. Thank you so much for joining today, everyone. My name is Jesse Wieland. I'm the Associate Director at the Office of National Fellowships here at Florida State. And for those of you joining us virtually, which as of right now is everyone. So for those who haven't worked with our office, we're inside the Honors Scholars and Fellows House, which if you don't know where that is on campus, but you do know where the Chick-fil-A is, then you actually know where we are. So we're right off of Landis Green. We're on the third floor, right above the Chick-fil-A. And so today we're going to be talking about summer research opportunities specifically, but at the Office of National Fellowships, or just ONF, we help students apply for many different types of fellowships and opportunities. These are going to all be focused on research, but we also work with students on international experiences, other leadership fellowships, others focused on social change and other topics. And so this is just a drop in the bucket of the types of opportunities that we work with. And so as we're going through this, I know this is going to be a lot of information, but if you see an award type or an award name that you want to know more about, please write that down and then reach out to either myself or Bonnie, and we'll have all of our contact information at the end. And we can set up a one-on-one meeting with you to start talking about some of these opportunities, your applications, your essays, and what we need to do to get prepared. Also, feel free during this presentation, if you want to type a question into the chat as it pops into your head. I'll try to check that intermittently so we can talk about it as we're going through, but we'll have plenty of time at the end as well. And so I know from the people that have registered for this presentation are students anywhere from their first year to their second year to their third year. And dependent on where you are in your undergraduate career, you're going to opt into or opt out of different fellowships and scholarships and awards. And so for those of you who may be STEM majors, which may be the majority of you in attendance, research experience is one of the, in my opinion, one of the greatest ways to engage outside of the classroom, to really confirm that you are studying what you should be studying, the things that really resonate with you and vibe with your interests. But also I think it's one of the best ways to build your resume before graduate school, before pursuing internships, before hopefully pursuing a job in your career field. And this is something that as when I was an undergraduate student myself, I didn't know that these options existed. And so my summers did not consist of research. My summers consisted of working as a host, as a bartender. And so while that was great for helping me learn how to make Long Island iced teas, it did not really further my career in education as an undergraduate. So one of the major reasons why I think you should be pursuing these opportunities is it's helping you confirm, like I said, that this is what I would like to do with my career, or it also challenges, that maybe this isn't it, but maybe it's somewhere within this field. Like I already mentioned, it's going to really increase your competitiveness when you're thinking about your time after Florida State, but it also helps you build long-lasting professional relationships with your professors, your faculty at Florida State. As a first-gen student myself, I didn't really know how to navigate that college environment as an undergraduate, and so I didn't really know that I needed to be building those types of professional relationships for recommendation letters after my time at Florida State. And so getting involved in research is a really excellent way, especially as a STEM student, to not just be one of 200 students in a class, but for your professor to really start to know you personally, know your capabilities, and know what some of your professional goals are. But the other reason, maybe a more simplistic reason, but still very important, is that all of the opportunities that we're going to be talking about are fully funded. And so with our office and with all of the awards that we work with, the vast majority of them, while they are competitive, either are fully funded or very near fully funded, meaning they'll pay for your cost of travel, your plane ticket, they'll pay for your cost of living wherever it is that you may go or be doing research. You oftentimes receive a stipend for the duration of your program. And in many cases, you receive an additional scholarship that you can apply back towards books, tuition, and fees at Florida State University. And so with all of these applications, while it does require time to put together a competitive application, the payout on the back end, if you do receive it, is pretty significant. And so One of the most recognizable awards that students will apply to as undergraduates is through the National Science Foundation. They're called Research Experience for Undergraduates, or REUs colloquially. And so the nice thing about an REU, again, fully funded, but they are at institutions, research institutions or universities all across the United States and in every different field of or discipline within STEM. They typically run the duration of the summer, but every institution is going to be unique with different faculty and different areas of focus. And so you can really get very niche in terms of, say, if you're already involved in research at Florida State, maybe you could find another project that is in line with that, or maybe allows you to dig a little bit deeper. Or conversely, I've had students that have used REUs as an opportunity for, well, I'm doing this research at Florida State, and I enjoy it, but it's not really my specific area of interest or where I want to go in my career, but this REU is. And so they can use those experiences to complement one another and, again, really build their resume. But the nice thing about REUs is that once the applications open, usually around like the middle of the fall, late fall semester, they're open all the way up until through February and sometimes even early March. And if you register for this presentation, I know there's links on here that you physically can't click while you're listening to me talk, but we will send you all of these slides so you have all of the links. Just wanted to clarify. But the nice thing about these REUs is that it's not just for STEM majors. And so we understand a lot of students at FSU have very intersecting interests. And so, like I said before, you can use an REU to complement what you are doing, or maybe find some experience that you wouldn't have otherwise found at Florida State. So these are all of the disciplines supported by REUs that wouldn't technically be classified under STEM. But when you do go to their website, again, the link on the previous slide, what you're going to find is you'll have all these different fields of study listed, anything from physics to chemistry to biology to computer science to the like. And when you click on those, you can find anywhere from just a small handful, but what is most common is that you'll find page after page after page after page of REU opportunity, and it's going to look just like this. And so it's going to show you where the REU takes place, both the university, the city, the PI and their contact information, and then usually a pretty brief description of what that opportunity entails. And so if you were to look at this right now, while some REUs may be updated already, they're still in the process of doing that. So you may find some outdated information, but the contact information should be recent and up to date. And so I usually recommend to students of mine, especially at this early juncture, if you're considering an REU, find a handful, anywhere from 2 to 8. You know, the number is arbitrary, but you know, a small handful or two of opportunities that might align with your interest, and start reaching out to the PIs or the people in charge. Some of these REUs from previous experience are extremely receptive to answering questions that you may have, scheduling a Zoom call, maybe giving you a little bit more information about what participants in the past have done with this opportunity. Other REUs might be a little bit more standoffish, but if that's the case, that doesn't mean you can't apply. Some of them just want to, you know, make sure that, well, we don't give out any additional information about this. It's on the website just to be as fair as possible. And so if that's the case, you know, that's their prerogative. However, I've had students that have gotten a lot of really excellent information from these PIs that really confirmed, like, wow, this is a really great opportunity and definitely something that I would like to do. And like I already mentioned, there are REUs that are international, but the vast majority are domestic. And it's, I mean, anywhere from Alaska down to South Florida, and all the way up to Maine. And so for some students, they've also used REUs very strategically. So for example, depending on your field of study, and maybe if you're in your second or more likely your third year, and you're starting to consider graduate school and where you might want to study either regionally or by specific institutions, I've had students that have applied to very targeted REUs at those institutions and have gone during the summer to really confirm, like, yes, this is a university I see myself at, or this is faculty I really see myself working with in the future, or this would really provide me with a lot of resources, really great opportunity for whether I'm pursuing a master's degree or a PhD or maybe a joint program. And so you can be very strategic with this. But if you're in your first or your second year, you don't have to overanalyze it in that way. It can just be, this is a great opportunity, and maybe it gets me out of Florida for the summer. Maybe go experience some actual like nice summer weather, which I've had students that have gone all the way up to Boston, to Colorado, up to the Northeast, to Utah, and so really all over. Now, that's the REU opportunity. And what you're going to see with a lot of these applications, and actually one thing I should mention before we move on from the REUs, is that the reason the deadlines aren't on this slide is because they are all over the place. So every REU is going to have a different deadline, different requirements. One may ask you for one letter of recommendation, one may ask for two, one may ask for, 4 or 5 short essays, one could ask for just 1 2-page essay. Like, the requirements are all over the place because it's up to those individual institutions to set those parameters. And so that's why it's important to go in, make your short list, but also know what each of those ask for. But applying to one REU typically means that we can make slight modifications to that application and apply to a second, and then slight modifications maybe apply to the third. So we can really work smarter and not harder when it comes to the REUs. And then what you're going to see with a lot of these other fellowships that we're going to discuss is that the application process and what they're asking you to articulate, even the structure of the award itself, is very similar. And so when we're working with students, and especially when we're working with students on REUs, what we try to do is take that application and see how we can best recycle it for these different opportunities, knowing you're not going to get every single REU that you apply for, and that's okay. But if we can balance that with, say, the Science Undergraduate Laboratory Internship, or SULI, or some of these other programs, it just greatly increases your chances that you're going to be spending this summer doing something in your field of study with the research that you would like to do, whether that's at Florida State or elsewhere. And so this opportunity, SULI, it is funded by the Department of Energy. And what you're going to see with some of these others, regardless of what the government entity that funds it, it is because the United States is very invested in developing researchers and experts in these different STEM fields. And so there's just funding abounds, but it doesn't necessarily come with a requirement that you have to work for the DOE or that you have to, work for the Navy later on. It is just, this opportunity is here. If you would like research experience, please take advantage of it. And then, see you later. Best of luck in your career. We would hope some of these organizations might like to see you come back later on, and one of them in particular provides additional funding if you do, but it can simply be viewed as a singular summer research experience if you would like. And so for SULI, the length is pretty similar to what you're going to see through these different REUs, but it is specific to one of the 17 labs that the Department of Energy operates. So the options are a little bit more limited, but they still have opportunities for students in, I don't want to say all, but the vast majority of STEM fields. Excuse me. And so, whereas the REUs, you can apply for an REU as a freshman, as a sophomore, as a junior. You just need to, or sometimes as a senior if you're returning for a fall semester. Whereas SULI, you need to be a sophomore, but you can also be a senior applying for one of these opportunities, even if you are no longer a student during the time that you are participating in the program. This, of the ones that we are talking about, is actually due the soonest. This is due at the beginning of October, which is still plenty of time to work on an application and to reach out to recommenders. But what you could use SULI as, if it's something that you're interested in, if you go on the website and find a really good placement for yourself, is that this can be one of those early applications that we could then, like I was saying for the REUs, modify and then recycle for some of these other awards that are due later in the fall or at the beginning of the spring semester. Now, the Naval Research Enterprise Internship Program, or NREIP, which you'll find with a lot of these STEM fellowships, is that pretty awful acronyms. But anyways, so this is one that is funded by the Navy. It's funded by the government. And this is one that does like to see students come back. As you can see, for first-year participants, you get a $7,500 stipend for that summer. And if you come back for a second summer, that increases to $9,000. And this is also, this is available to freshmen like the REUs, and similar to SULI, you can apply as a senior even if you've graduated before you participate. And so again, plenty of opportunities for STEM majors, a bit more limited than the NSF REUs, but one that you have plenty of time to work on. This isn't due until the beginning of November, but you can go to their website and find their specific placements in different lab experiences that they have available. It's more than SULI, it's at 47 different sites instead of 17, but still just a little bit smaller than the NSF REUs. So all of the experiences that we have talked about are domestic. The ones that follow are all going to be international, and that's just to show you that studying abroad doesn't have to simply be viewed in that traditional sense where I'm going abroad and I'm taking classes. A lot of students just aren't aware that you can pursue research experiences abroad, and you don't necessarily need to be well versed in the language of the host country to be competitive. If you do have that skill set, excellent, but it's not usually a requirement to be competitive. And one in particular that we have a lot of success with students over the years is the Dodd-RISE research internships in science and engineering, and it is specifically for Germany, but you don't need to know German to be competitive. All the labs are operated in English. The length is going to be the entirety of the summer. They fund your entire experience. They fund your cost of living. You receive a stipend. They pay for your flight. And this is one that it's similar to the REUs in that it has a lot of different options that you can apply for. You're going to select your specific field of study, and then it's going to give you a list of open labs. But you're limited in that you can only apply to 3 labs. The application is also going to be a little bit different in that for a lot of the REUs and for SULI and for all of these other programs, you're going to be writing typically a statement of purpose. This is why I'm pursuing this lab experience, coupled with a personal statement. So this is who I am, why I'm pursuing this. Whereas for the Dodd-RISE, you're actually having to write a cover letter, which if you haven't done that before, you're lucky. They suck. They're not the best. They're not my favorite style of writing. They're typically one page, and it's this weird amalgamation of a statement of purpose coupled with a little bit of your resume, maybe a little bit of a personal statement and some of the goals that you have for yourself, but it's all just kind of scrunched together in about maybe 2 solid, maybe 3 solid paragraphs. So the writing style is a little bit weird, but again, that's what our office is here to help you with. And this one's nice because it's due at the very end of the semester, right about in mid-December. And so it's one that you can get submitted early, and then you usually find out late January, early February if you receive the opportunity and have the funding. But for a lot of students, Dodd-RISE can be that reach opportunity. Like, I'm going to make sure that I look for my domestic experiences, but if Dodd is to work out, then I'm going to jump at that opportunity. And that's usually because they do offer fewer awards. It's only about like 300 that they offer. So it is pretty competitive, but it's one that we've sent plenty of Florida State students to in the past. Amgen is going to be extremely similar to Dodd-RISE, but it both takes place domestically, or it takes place in some placements in some labs in East Asia. And so it's another fully funded opportunity. I mean, you'll see that's a common theme throughout all of these. But as you can see, they have placements in Japan, Singapore, one in China, and then all of the universities that are associated in America are listed at the bottom. And so you can find the specific university that best vibes with your interests and apply to that destination. This one, and not so REUs really don't require this, and some of the other, like SULI, I don't believe requires this as well. But what you might see with a lot of these opportunities, and especially one that I'm going to talk about a little bit later in the presentation, is that a lot of these fellowships understand that as freshmen, as sophomores, even as juniors, your future career is pretty malleable. And so they like to see as much specificity as you can provide. But they understand that you may still be making, a lot of decisions between one way or another, where I could go, where I could study, what I would like to, specialize in. But a lot of these do like to see that you plan to pursue at the very least a master's, but ideally a PhD in your field of study. And when I talk to freshmen, when I talk to sophomores about that, often the conversation is, well, I'm trying to get this bachelor's degree right now. I'm not really concerned with that PhD, and that's absolutely okay. We can talk about it and kind of demystify what that looks like. And if it's something within the realm of possibilities as to, well, maybe I could pursue my PhD, or maybe I could, work in the industry for a couple of years and then maybe come back to it, like, that's fine. But a lot of these do like to see that you are at least considering that option to really become a researcher, a professional in your field. And so when it comes to that aspect of the applications, we can find ways to tailor it relative to your experience. But sorry, went off on a brief tangent. But when it comes back to Amgen specifically, this is an application that's not yet open, but because it is due in the spring, again, we can take a lot of your fall applications, recycle it, and consider Amgen similar to like we're considering Dodd, in that it can be that reach opportunity, but then we can make sure that we balance that with our opportunities domestically. Hollings is a really great opportunity that has a bit more of an academic focus. It's not open to every STEM field, but if you are in oceanic and atmospheric sciences, STEM education, or the physical and social sciences, this could be a really great opportunity, and it's a multi-year opportunity, which is nice in that it provides both an undergraduate scholarship that you can use towards, books, fees, and the like, but then it also provides 2 internships. So one, and this is one that you can only apply to in your second year, but it provides an internship following your second year, and then again following your third year before you start your senior year. And there is also funding set aside for you to engage with professional conferences. So not only do you get the field experience and that you're getting the research experience, but then you're able to, develop a poster and present that to people perhaps not in your specific field of study, and really be able to advocate for the research and the work that you're doing, which is another really excellent skill that our sister office, the Center for Undergraduate Research and Academic Engagement, they have a lot of opportunities to engage in research, but also present that research. And that's, again, something that a lot of graduate institutions will look at. It's not just what's the institution that you graduated from and the research that you did, but do you have any publications? Do you have presentation experience? Do you have other community experiences, service experiences? And so Hollings can be a really excellent way to kind of, double, triple dip in some ways to really boost your resume. This is one that opens in October. And so we're not quite there yet, but it's one that we can absolutely start having a conversation about. And the nice thing with this is that you do get to work for NOAA, which is a pretty recognizable institution for a lot of students in the fields of study that we talked about on the last slide. But yeah, another fully funded opportunity that also has the added benefit of an undergraduate scholarship. Now, all of the opportunities we've talked to up until this point are national opportunities. The IDEA grant is an excellent opportunity through our sister office that I just mentioned, the CRE, and it is just for Florida State students. And so this is for students that are wanting to engage in summer research. It does not necessarily have to be in Tallahassee or at Florida State University. And I've had students that have used this IDEA grant funding to complement funding that they receive maybe through other fellowships and other REU experiences. And this funding can go to maybe extending your research experience in some cases. It can go to maybe additional travel expenses, or honestly, like souvenirs and other fun things, when you have maybe a little bit more funding than you need. But the point is, it can make sure that you are not having to take anything out of pocket, ideally, to fund your research, fund your travel, or fund your cost of living, or buy groceries, or whatever that may be. And so IDEA grants can be solo projects. It can be up to $4,000 towards what research project that you want to do, or it can be up to $6,000 if you're part of a larger group. And those are funds that you could split amongst yourself. And so this is open to students from any academic discipline, and it can be for a project that's, it doesn't need to tie into your major, but it ideally does need to tie into what your career aspirations are. So they're very flexible, and this is one that's not, so it's open to freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. And you do need to be returning for a fall semester afterwards. So you're not eligible as a senior unless you're planning to return in fall of 2023. And so that's really all I have for idea grants. They're usually not due until the spring. So again, we can start talking early about these opportunities. And idea grant is an amazing opportunity, but for a lot of students that have aspirations to study elsewhere or even outside of the United States, the idea grant, again, can be an excellent safety net to make sure that you're still pursuing research, even if some of these other fellowships don't work out. Now, this last opportunity is one that I wanted to make sure that I touched on, and I'm just kind of double checking on time really quickly. But so everything that we've talked about thus far is considered a fellowship in the sense that it provides an experience. Like you're either traveling abroad, you're engaging in a lab, definitely engaging in research, and by the end of that experience, you will have studied, created, or maybe mastered some new skills, but whatever it is, you have some sort of learning outcome at the end of it. Where that differs from the Goldwater Scholarship is that Goldwater is purely recognition for the work that you have done. It's one of the most prestigious undergraduate fellowships when it comes to STEM research. And like I was kind of mentioning earlier for some of these other opportunities, Goldwater wants to invest in students that plan to pursue a career in research, plan to ideally pursue graduate study, ideally a PhD in their field. But it's only open to current sophomores and juniors. That is relative to your graduation date. So we can talk about, if you're concerned about eligibility, we can always talk about that one-on-one. But it's up to, if you do receive it, it's up to $7,500 that you could receive if you apply and receive it as a sophomore. You could receive for 2 years, or if you apply as a junior, you would receive for 1 year. And the funds go to, books, fees, and tuition, because Goldwater wants to, as best they can, ensure that the students that receive this opportunity are able to further commit to their research. They know those positions are usually unpaid. And so their hope is that the scholarship funding means you don't have to necessarily work in addition as many hours outside of campus or through another position, but you can focus on more time in the lab. But it's open to any STEM discipline, and on their website, it'll break down all of the eligible fields from psychology to physics to chemistry to computer science to, any of those. Now, I work with a lot of students, and actually one of our recipients last year that has aspirations to pursue an MD PhD. So it's like they want to be a practicing doctor, but they also want to maintain their research for cancer studies and cures, hopefully. And so they're wanting to both be in the lab and be practicing medicine. So if you have plans of going to medical school, that's fine. We would just need to talk about the possibility of an MD PhD route. I already kind of mentioned the duration of the award. It's 2 years as a sophomore, 1 year as a junior. And they do award only about 500 awards nationally, which sounds like a very small number. But this is one that you actually, so if you're interested in applying, you actually have to go through our offices, the Office of National Fellowships. You have to go through our process. Meaning we have a campus deadline set for November 16th, and that is for a full and complete application, because we actually have a faculty Goldwater committee on campus that reviews all of our applications, and as an institution, and so this is the same for Florida State University all the way to Harvard University, any institution in the US can only nominate 4 candidates. Or 5 if one of those students is a transfer student. And if you are endorsed following that November 16th deadline, then we have until the end of January to make final edits and improvements to your application before we submit it for that national deadline. And when it comes to Goldwater, yes, they only award about 500 awards, but we've had over the past 3 years, even with the limitation in numbers, we've only nominated 4 students every year for the past 3 years. So of the 12 that we've nominated, 6 have actually received scholarship, which is, I mean, pretty fantastic. We had 1 student in 2020, we had 3 students in 2021, and we had 2 students this past year. So this is one that the students at Florida State are doing fantastic research. And this is one that is absolutely more than possible to be a recipient of. And the nice thing about Goldwater, and this is the last thing that I'll say about it, is that you can apply at different stages in your research, meaning like I've had students that have applied with a research project they haven't yet conducted, but they have all the details as to what the project will be, what they are looking to address, and what their role will be within that project. Students have used that. Students have used projects that are firmly in the midst of. I don't have data and results yet, but I have a very firm understanding of what we're doing and what my responsibilities are. And then I've had students that have used research, projects that are fully completed. Here's all of everything that I did, all of the data that I received, and here's maybe some future directions for what I plan to do with this project moving forward. Or not necessarily, if it's a completed project, you're moving on to the next thing, that's fine too. But what Goldwater wants to see is, what is that research that you've done? And then they have a few additional short essays that get at your interest in STEM, your future career aspirations, and a few other essays just to learn a little bit more about you. So just to touch on some general tips for success, please, when you're going through and looking at all of these different fellowships and the mission of these fellowships, make sure that it aligns with the goals that you have for yourself. This isn't just for STEM and research fellowships, because like I said at the beginning of this presentation, we work with so many others, and we want to make sure that we know all of our students are extremely busy. We know that you're balancing classes, oftentimes with research, other involvement, clubs and organizations. And so we know that your time is precious, and we want to make sure that we're not just applying to things willy-nilly, but we're applying to the opportunities that best align with the goals that you set with yourself. And so make sure that you find congruency, I think is the key word, both between your personal aspirations, but also your academic aspirations and the opportunities that you're applying to. Also be acutely aware of these deadlines. Everything is going to be, and I think I can use this as a blanket statement, everything is due sooner than you think. Everything is going to take a little bit more time than you anticipate to prepare a proper application. And so at the bare minimum, we recommend that you give yourself a month to work on any application. And I really emphasize bare minimum. A lot of these different fellowships take multiple months to really put it together, because it's not just your writing, it's not just your essays and your research essays, your personal statements. It's also collaborating with your letter of recommendation writers and making sure they have enough time and enough information to be able to write you compelling letters. And in some cases, it's also collaborating with our office for Goldwater, for example, like sitting down, working on your essays, but also making time with your PI or whomever you may be doing research with to also review your essays, because my background is not in STEM. So while I can't give you very technical information about your research, I can make sure that your essays are organized, that they're compelling, and that we are presenting yourself on paper as best as we can. Now, other than that, the letter of recommendation is something I do want to emphasize, because for some students, they haven't really navigated that process before. They haven't really built those types of professional relationships, and that's absolutely fine. I'm more than happy to talk to you about that and how to get going on that process. Going to office hours can be one of the easiest, most immediate ways to do that, especially if you're in one of these larger sections where you have 100 or 200 students. You really want to be more than just a name on a page to your professors. But in addition to that, what our office does, if you haven't been able to kind of glean that from the presentation already, is that we will sit down with you, we'll break down these different prompts and these essays, these requirements, all of these components, and edit and revise your essays, and make sure that you are doing everything you need to be doing when you need to be doing it. And so we can help you identify what are the best opportunities for you to apply to based on your resume, based on your interests and your goals. And then, like I said, we can help you navigate that recommendation letter writer process. Sorry, words are hard. And we're just here to support you in whatever way that we can. That is our contact information. And I know that's a lot of information. I know I've been talking for a little while, but I do have plenty of time for questions, either about these specific opportunities, about the CRE, the ONF. And so I'm happy to hang out for a little while if you would like to unmute yourself, or if you would like to just type your question into the chat. If you do need to go, thank you so much for attending. I really appreciate you being here, and I really hope to hear from you soon. Again, my name is Jesse, but we also have Dr. Filer, we have Bonnie, we have Christine. All of us work in the same office. It's a very small office, but we work with many different students from many different academic backgrounds that are interested in these types of opportunities and others. And so we just really look forward to hearing from you and helping you find other ways to engage in your studies beyond the classroom. Thank you so much. And so